one of the things I've enjoyed doing and has also helped me save more money and retire early is occasionally hitting up an estate sale. I use the estatesales.net app. You can search terms and look through pictures, and you can just go to the sales that interest you. I typically look for sales where it looks like the guy was either a machinist or a woodworker or a mechanic. I normally don't go to them otherwise. They're just not worth it to me. And usually the sales are Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and normally Sunday is 50% off. And so you'll find that things, generally speaking, are priced something like 50% of new. And then on the last day, since it's 50% off again, you're normally looking at spending like maybe $20 for an item that costs $100. But one of the things about estate sales is that when it's done by a professional company, normally they have what's called a bag man. And that's basically a guy who will come and clean up the house after the estate sale is over. And he's basically required to take every single item, including trash and junk, and get it off the premises so that they can sell the house. And so they normally have a pre-arranged contract with him for like $300 or $500, and he gets everything left over at the sale. And they can't change that agreement. And so what you'll find is like an hour, if you get to the estate sale an hour before they close on the last day, and then you poke around and you grab some stuff, they are very, very willing to negotiate and give you a better price. And I'm not suggesting that you take advantage of people or anything like that. But at the end of the day, they set up the estate sales, they set up the rules. And at the end of the day, on the last day, they're highly motivated to sell things. And so if you know that, you can play their game that way. And so we just got back from this estate sale. It was a Sunday, 50% off, closed at 6. We got there at about 5. And it was basically the first time I ever took my kids. And I thought they would think it was fun. It's kind of like a treasure hunt. And they did. And so basically everything you see here on the bench, we paid $32 for. I had told my son I would buy him a little jack. He's been excited about that for a while. I paid $5 for all of these pieces of Delrin. He didn't notice that I had grabbed this bag of sanding drums and these, but at the end he said, oh, you can just have it for free. This is a Starrett clamp I paid $2.50 for. We paid $2.50 for this calculator from my daughter. She thought it was really fun because it has paper. We got all this paper for $1.50. We got this book, which we were missing from our collection, for $1.50. A couple of clothes for my daughter. And then basically, he gave us most of that stuff for free, and he gave us most of that stuff for free, because when you're spending $20-$30, this stuff, I think they gave us all this for 50 cents maybe, and then the other stuff he said, oh, you can just have it. I also bought this tank refrigerant for $10. I don't know exactly how rare this one is. I didn't have time to do much research on it, and I'm not familiar with this number, but I know I bought a tank like this that was full for $100 once at a estate sale, and it was R12, which is no longer produced. And there's a company called refrigerantfinders.com. You can legally sell it to them because there's a lot of regulations surrounding refrigerant because of its effect on the atmosphere. And I bought a tank for $100 and I sold it for $800. Now this won't be worth $800, I'm almost certain, because you can see you're switching out of R22, and R22 is the equivalent of R12, which was worth a lot of money in the past. But again, we paid $32 for this. And honestly, it's actually fun to go to estate sales and kind of poke around and see what things have stood the test of time. A lot of times the estate sale is taking place because someone has died, and so they have older things that you can't really find on the market anymore. And Starrett is this guy was a machinist. Starrett's basically the best name, along with Mitutoyo, in the machining world. I've seen Snap-on stuff at these places before, and it's half treasure hunt, half really good deal. You also can work on your negotiation skills, which is a good thing to develop, especially if you have kids. What I normally do is I wait until maybe 15 minutes before they close, And I start with the biggest items so that the guy understands that I'm not just going to piddle him to death and, try and get this for 5 cents instead of 25 cents. And then basically I start with the big stuff and I end with the little stuff. And once they can see that you're going to spend 40, 50, 60 bucks with them, they're willing to just give you this stuff for free. If you start with this, then they're going to say, 50 cents, 50 cents, 50 cents. But at the end, they'll just give it to you. The other thing is, and this is just a tip, is I was teaching this to my children. If somebody buys a $100,000 car and the next day they try and sell it to you for $50,000, that's a great deal and a very fair price. It doesn't mean you can afford it, and it doesn't mean you need it. And so when you're talking with these merchants, it's often helpful to use phrases like, that's probably a fair price, but it's not worth it to me. Because if you start telling the merchant that you think all of his prices are unfair, he's going to get offended and pissed off. And then he won't be fair in return with the negotiation. But if you can say this truthfully, I'm not advocating deceit, but if you can, if you can help them understand that, this item isn't worth it to you because you already own one, but you wouldn't mind having a second one if it costs cheap enough, that'll smooth over the items where you hoped they would come down on price, but then they won't, without sort of pissing them off in the process. So I put a couple items back that were probably reasonably priced, but nothing that I really needed. And you could even detect in his voice that he was starting to defend himself, that it was a good price. And I just said, I was like, you know what, it probably is. I already have one and I don't really need to. I just thought I'd check. So anyway, you want to retire early. Being frugal and resourceful is a skill that you'll want and need. And estate sales are a pretty fun way to do it. I wouldn't rely on them for items that you absolutely need and have to have. But, when you can buy consumables like this, in this case, they were literally free, but, for pennies on the dollar, you can fuel a hobby. And then the real magic at an estate sale is if you can look for one or two items which are resellable at a profit, then you can pay for itself. So one year I bought a little hammer from Starrett. I bought it for $1. I sold it for $95 on eBay. One year I bought a full tank of R12 refrigerant, bought it for $100, resold it for $800. I bought a fancy Bosch level with a digital level. I bought it for $20 and sold it for $200 or something like that. So if you think also a little bit outside the box and you look for one or two items that you can get at a good price but could really resell well, then it's actually a hobby that can pay for itself. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting. If not, that's okay. Give it a thumbs down. Let me know. And I'm trying to think if there's anyone who does any good, frugal, resourceful stuff. Probably the post-apocalyptic inventor. He goes to scrapyards and fixes stuff up, so maybe you'll like him if you stumbled upon mine, but you didn't like it. All right, folks, take care. Gotcha.